So here is how to get the tank off. You'll need to do this to do anything on the HT leads or these troublesome vacuum pipes for the idle servo and anything to do with the fuel tank. So the procedure I use, because I've got this rack bolted over the top, these screws threads are a bit bad. I don't like taking this off. Is you can split the rear fairing and take it off completely, but what I do is I use a couple of aerosol tops. If you ease this front plug out after taking the two center pins out, there is enough. You can just put one of these between the tank, and it means you can get the tank off without taking all this side panel off, disconnecting the rear carrier, the rear light, and causing a lot of trouble there. So just a couple of aerosol cans, that's the first thing you do. Take these two bolts off after the seat, put your caps in having eased them out, and if they're tight, try and get some WD-40 in there, because they just fit into rubber grommets on the tank, and if they're dry they can be a pig, so don't break these off, but just ease them out gently, and plenty of WD-40 if you can. Okay, now there's two screws here which are a TORX type fitting. I've got the bit here, what does that say? Probably it's a 20 or something, and you'll need one of these bits. Hang on, that's a TORX 30. There you go. And that does these two screws here. It also does the HT pack modules as well. These were 6mm Allen keys, and these two were the same TRX 30 bit. So those are the tools you're going to need. Now the tricky bit is disconnecting all of the pipes and wires. So what I do is I've got about a 12-inch slab of wood, and you'll find that you can jam that bit of wood between the top of the engine or the top of the frame and the if you take this front bolt out, you can lift it up. Now let the back stay down initially, lever this up about 8-10 inches from the frame, and it allows you, because you've got this pushed out to the side, access to these fuel pipes and electrical connectors. Now you can't do the bottom one initially, that's the pig. You can only do the side ones. So you're going to pull out those long pipes, which is the water drain for the fuel filler, and there's another pipe there which I think is the overflow for the tank, or a pressure release. So on this you've got these push clips. They are a bitch. You've got these delicate O-rings here which are very easy to damage, and if you've got the old-fashioned connectors like this, the problem is that if you push them with your finger, you'll watch me slide it against the spring. If you push it too far, this ends up cutting the O-ring as it comes out. If you don't push it enough, it ends up pushing the O-ring. I think Triumph have got some special tool for doing this. Now some of these have been replaced with easier ones, but what you want to do is feel it. So allow the plug to slip out. When it's slipping out, hold this still, don't let it go and then force the connector out. If you let that spring clip go and pull it out, you will tear and damage the O-ring, and you'll need to wait for Triumph to send you some new ones. Okay, now there's a vacuum pipe which pulls off here. It's important to do that first, because if you take it off, the fuel won't flow when you disconnect these. If for some reason there is a vacuum on that pipe, it will continue to flow, and it conveniently dropped inside the engine there, so I can't put my fingers on it. But it comes from, of course, it comes from the air cleaner. Right, so we've got the two things off. A quick tip here: you see this silver spray, overspray. What I did before I disconnected these two, I sprayed this one silver and the corresponding plug here. So I know when I reconnect it, the silver sprayed one goes here and the other one goes there. Otherwise, it's easy to get them the wrong way round, and your engine ain't going to work, because one is the pressure and one is the return. Okay, so it's easy to get those mixed up. They're exactly the same diameter on this, which is a silly thing to do. The fuel pump connector, you just have to push down this middle clip and it'll slip off quite easily. Now, you pull all this out, you'll find that you can't get to this one. Now, what I then do is I get my 12-inch plank and I get the whole tank then at about 45 degrees, so it exposes this connector. It's a bit of a pig. You've got to pull them apart, the two ends, and push this little pin down if it's jamming as you do so. When you've got that off, you can then strip the whole tank out and its connector stays with the tank. That, I believe, is the fuel tank level sensor that you're disconnecting underneath. So best idea is not to fill it full of fuel just before you do this job, because it's going to be heavier and leak more if you put it on its side through the lid and through these gauges. I had this once where I'd filled up and it was pissing fuel out of these pipes, overflow, because it wasn't horizontal where you store it. Now on this, the next stage is to get the air filter off, as there's two Torx 30 bolts here. You can probably just pull this sensor out without disconnecting it. That's what I did. And with this one, it's a little bit of a pig. There is a wire which you've got to pull out sideways, and only then you can drag it off. Now, word of warning here, if you turn the ignition on with the battery connected, I've removed mine for now, and you don't have this sensor connected, it will give you an engine management light when you are running the bike, because it detected there was a fault with this sensor. So if you are going to run the engine, make sure you take the sensor out of your airbox, plug it back into here, and then if you're running this somehow, I've had this with the tank on the side on a stool and reconnected to fuel and other sensors. It's a real strain, but you can run it for synchronizing the carbs. Okay, so that's it. How to get your airbox. What else is there? Oh, there is a clip on the airbox, and what I do is I use a pair of long nose pliers and I squeeze that clip and put it down a couple of inches so that this will wiggle off. Other than that, there's no problems with it. The big pipe there is just for draining surplus pressure or water out of it if it fills up with water. Condensation drain, I think. And that's it. They're just a springs fitting on there. I think it rests on this rubber slightly. But that's it. Okay, so that is how to get off your tank. It's a Triumph 955. This one's a 1999 model, so you may have some differences. And by the way, this had, like nearly all of them, cracks and splits in the original rubber Triumph air pipes. So I've replaced it with 6mm hose, which has got some nice strength armouring on the outside. And you'll see the clips here, 1, 2, 3. Notice that this hole is unoccupied, is blanked off, in fact. So those are the 3. 1 gap, 2, 3. And it doesn't matter which way they go round. But what it's doing is, as the solenoid opens, it allows air to go in behind your throttle flaps. So if I twist the throttle, it opens the flap. But if you look at the outlet where that's feeding to, it's behind. So even when you've got completely closed throttles, this is controlling the air bleed electronically, and that is the anti-stall system on these bikes. So if you want to adjust the tick over speed, you've got no choice but to plug in your OBD connector, and if you use Tune ECU, which is a free download, it will allow you to set the tick over. I set mine very low because I like it that way with more engine braking, but I think it's normally about 1,000. I've got mine at about 800 and something. But there you go. Hope that helps you. When you put it back in, reverse procedure. So you're going to put on the airbox, make sure all of these are evenly sealed. You haven't crimped or moved these pipes. You're going to put this tube back on, pinch the clip, pull it back up so it squeezes it. You're going to have 2 Torx bolts in here. Make sure before you fit it down hard you've got these 2 pipes in sensible positions, you haven't folded them underneath. Put back the 2 sensors on the right hand side. Those are the airflow and temperature sensors, I believe. And then you can reconnect the bottom connector first, which is the fuel level sensor, and then you do the 2 pressure fuel connectors and the pump connector, and then you would lower it down. That is pretty much all that's involved in this. After you've lowered it down, you put your central pin in. These are a real wiggle. You can rotate positions because they have a sort of elliptical back there, so you can rotate the rubbers a little bit. And then you put your pegs back into the rubber holes, and then finally your things. These basically, remember these fittings here, sorry about the zoom, these have rubber washers under them to prevent cracking. This one didn't have one, so it's cracked the damn pairing. So when you put these down, you want rubber between the plastic and maybe a washer and then the bolt. Okay, these are the bolts here. Those are the ones for the rubber tank. These are the ones concerned. You see there's a rubber washer there. Rubber before it hits the plastic. That's correct. But in past, somebody just put the bolt down before I got the bike. I promise you it was them. Anyway, it's all pretty dirty down here. So while you've got the tank out, good idea to spray loads of WD-40 to stop it corroding these aluminium frame parts and the suspension joints. You'll see here traces of white grease. It all prevents the salt and the water getting in where you don't want it, which is near the bearings. There's the top of the alternator here. I wouldn't spray that with anything. And it's just a good idea. If you've got something that looks a bit nasty, free it off, WD-40, put it back in before you resew it. This bike is absolutely filthy, but there you go. It's done a good load of miles, 60,000 now, I think. Hope this video helps you. Any questions, put them on the comments.